You woke up again today with that feeling, that unexplainable weight on your chest, those thoughts that arrive unannounced and circle your head like vultures circling overhead. And then you do what you always do. You try to push those thoughts away. You try to silence that inner voice that won't stop talking. You try to control a mind that seems to have a life of its own. But I need to tell you something that could change all of this today. Your mind isn't your enemy, and it's certainly not trying to destroy you. In fact, it's doing the exact opposite. It's trying to save you from something you can't yet see. I know how that sounds, especially after years of battling your own thoughts, especially after feeling like a prisoner in your own head. But let me ask you something. Have you ever stopped to question why your mind acts this way? Why does it insist on creating catastrophic scenarios? Why can't it just be quiet? The answer will surprise you. And by the end of this conversation, you'll understand why everything you've been taught about mental control was wrong. My name is, well, that doesn't matter right now. What matters is that I spent years of my life fighting the same war you fight every day, the war against my own mind. And I discovered something that completely changed my relationship with my thoughts. Something therapists rarely talk about. Something that could transform your life today. But before I reveal that to you, I need you to understand something fundamental about how your mind really works. Imagine for a moment that you have a personal bodyguard, a professional trained to detect danger. This bodyguard has one mission: to keep you alive and safe at all costs. Now imagine that this bodyguard has access to information you don't. He can see patterns you don't notice. He detects threats your eyes can't capture. Your mind is exactly that bodyguard. Every time it fires off those anxious thoughts, it's not trying to attack you. It's trying to warn you about something. Every time it creates those terrible scenarios in your head, it's not being dramatic. It's simulating situations to prepare you. Every time it keeps you awake at night, reviewing the same problem 1,000 times, it's not being cruel. It's searching for a solution to protect you. The problem isn't that your mind is broken. The problem is that you don't know how to communicate with it. It's like having a dog that barks all night. You can get angry at the dog. You can try to silence it by force. But the dog isn't barking to annoy you. It's barking because it heard something you didn't hear. Your mind is that dog. And for a long time, it's been trying to tell you about something you can't see. But what exactly is it trying to protect you from? That's the question that changed my life. And it could change yours too. The answer lies in what I call the invisible danger. Every person who suffers from obsessive thoughts, chronic anxiety, or that constant feeling that something is wrong is dealing with the same phenomenon. The mind has detected a dangerous pattern in your life. Something subtle, something you don't consciously perceive. It could be a toxic relationship you've normalized. It could be a work environment that's slowly undermining your mental health. It could be a behavioral pattern you've repeated so much that it's become invisible. Or it could be something even deeper, something related to how you relate to yourself. Let me tell you about Sarah. Sarah came to me 2 years ago. She couldn't sleep. She couldn't concentrate at work. She lived with the feeling that something terrible was about to happen. Every day, she woke up with a racing heart. Every day, she obsessively checked her phone. Every day, she mentally reviewed everything she had said and done, looking for mistakes. Sarah thought she was going crazy. Doctors said it was generalized anxiety. They prescribed medication. They suggested cognitive therapy to control negative thoughts, but nothing worked. Why? Because Sarah was fighting the symptom, not the cause. Sarah's mind wasn't creating anxiety for no reason. It had detected something dangerous in Sarah's life, something Sarah couldn't see on her own. When we finally discovered what it was, Sarah cried with relief. For years, she had been in a relationship with someone who used subtle emotional manipulation tactics. Nothing obvious. Nothing she could put her finger on and say, "This is wrong." But her subconscious mind had detected the pattern. It had perceived the microaggressions. It had noticed how Sarah always left conversations feeling smaller. It had identified how her self-esteem was being eroded drop by drop. And then Sarah's mind started sounding the alarm. Not through clear thoughts like, "This relationship is toxic," but through anxiety, through that constant feeling of danger. Why? Because the subconscious mind doesn't speak our language. It speaks through sensations, through intuitions, through what we call symptoms. The moment Sarah understood this, everything changed. She no longer needed to fight her anxiety. She needed to listen to what her anxiety was trying to say. And you know what happened? When Sarah left the toxic relationship, the anxiety disappeared almost instantly. Not through medication, not through breathing techniques, but through action. Her mind had fulfilled its mission. It had warned her of the danger. It had protected her. This is the power of understanding your mind as an ally, not an enemy. But I know what you're thinking now. Okay, but what about my case? What is the danger my mind is detecting? That's exactly the right question. And to answer it, you need to learn the secret language of your mind. Every mental symptom is a coded message. Every obsession is a map pointing to something important. Every recurring thought is a post-it note left by your unconscious wisdom. Thoughts about money that keep you awake at night? Your mind has detected real financial instability or a limiting belief about abundance that's sabotaging your opportunities. Obsession with health and fear of illness? Your mind has identified that you're neglecting your body or living in a way that's not sustainable in the long run. Intense social anxiety? Your mind has perceived that you're living a false version of yourself, and it's costing you vital energy. Thoughts about death and existence that appear out of nowhere? Your mind has detected that you're not living in accordance with your deepest values? Constant anger and irritability? Your mind has identified that your boundaries are being repeatedly violated. Do you see the pattern? Your mind isn't creating problems. It's pointing to problems that already exist. But there's something even deeper happening here. Something most people never discover. Your mind isn't just protecting you from external dangers. It's also protecting you from a truth about yourself that might be painful to accept. And that truth is the key to your freedom. Remember when you were a child and afraid of the dark? You weren't afraid of the darkness itself. You were afraid of what might be hidden in the darkness. Your adult mind works the same way. It's not afraid of the thoughts themselves. It's afraid of what might be hidden in the darkness. It's afraid of what those thoughts might reveal about your life. That's why it creates all this mental clutter, all this anxiety and obsession, to keep you busy with the symptoms and prevent you from looking at the root cause. It's as if your mind is saying, if I keep you focused on controlling these anxious thoughts, You won't realize you need to make real changes in your life. This might sound like sabotage, but it's actually protection. Because making real changes is scary. Leaving toxic relationships is scary. Changing careers is scary. Confronting past traumas is scary. So your mind creates a safe distraction. It gives you something to fight that won't require real changes in your life. It's easier to fight thoughts than to fight the situation that's causing those thoughts. But here's what your mind didn't expect. You're discovering its game. And the moment you understand the game, the rules change completely. Instead of fighting your mind, you can ask a different question. Instead of asking, how do I stop these thoughts? You can ask, what are these thoughts trying to show me? This shift in perspective is revolutionary because it transforms you from a victim of your own mind into a collaborator. And when you become a collaborator with your mind, incredible things begin to happen. First, the resistance disappears. When you stop fighting your thoughts, they stop fighting back. Second, clarity emerges. When you stop spending energy trying to silence your mind, you can finally hear what it's trying to say. Third, action becomes possible. When you understand the real message behind the symptoms, you can act on the root cause, not just the effect. But there's a fourth benefit that's the most powerful of all. You develop trust in your own inner wisdom. For years, you believed your mind was your enemy, that you couldn't trust your own thoughts and feelings, that you needed external validation to know if you were doing the right thing. But when you discover that your mind has always been trying to protect you, everything changes. You realize you have access to an intelligence far greater than your conscious thought. An intelligence that processes millions of pieces of information per second. An intelligence that detects patterns your eyes can't see. This intelligence isn't something mystical or supernatural. It's pure science. Your subconscious brain processes 11 million bits of information per second. Your conscious brain processes only 40. This means that 99.99% of what you perceive about the world happens below the level of consciousness. Your intuition, your gut feelings, that feeling that something isn't right. All of this is your subconscious mind sharing information it has collected, but that you haven't consciously processed. When you understand this, you stop dismissing your feelings as drama or exaggeration. You begin to treat them as valuable data. And here's where the magic happens. The moment you start treating your mind as a source of information instead of a source of problems, it begins to cooperate differently. Obsessive thoughts transform into insights. Anxiety transforms into intuition. Fear transforms into wisdom. Not because you applied some mind control technique, but because you changed the fundamental relationship with your own mind. Let me give you a practical example of how this works. Michael came to see me because he couldn't stop thinking about his work. Even on weekends, even on vacation, even trying to relax, his mind always returned to the problems at the office. Michael was exhausted, irritated with himself, frustrated because he couldn't switch off. First, I asked Michael, if these thoughts could speak, what would they be trying to tell you? Michael was silent for a moment. Then he said, I think they're saying I need to resolve some pending issues. And why do you think your mind doesn't trust that you'll solve those problems on Monday? That's when Michael had his first revelation. Because I always leave things for later, and when I do, they accumulate and get worse. His mind wasn't creating obsession out of malice. It had learned, through experience, that Michael had a pattern of procrastination that always generated bigger problems in the future. So it developed a protective strategy: keep Michael mentally connected to the problems, to prevent him from ignoring them. It was a dysfunctional strategy, but it was a strategy with a purpose. The moment Michael understood this, he could negotiate with his mind. Okay, mind, I understand your concern. I'm going to create a system to prevent problems from accumulating, but I need you to give me a break on weekends. Sounds silly? It works. Michael created a 30-minute routine every Friday to review pending issues and create a plan for the following week. He committed to not procrastinating on important matters, and his mind, sensing that it had a reliable protection system, finally relaxed. Michael began to be able to rest on weekends for the first time in years. This is the difference between fighting your mind and making an alliance with it. When you fight, it fights back. When you collaborate, it collaborates too. But there's an even deeper level to this story. A level that most people never reach. Your mind isn't just protecting you from practical dangers like toxic relationships or problems at work. It's also protecting you from your own greatness. This might sound contradictory. Why would your mind protect you from good things? Because to your primitive brain, anything unknown is potentially dangerous, including better versions of yourself. Let me explain this through a personal story. For years, I dreamed of having my own business. I knew exactly what I wanted to do. I had the necessary skills. I had the knowledge. I even had some concrete opportunities. But every time I was about to take real action, something happened. I got sick, or a sudden emergency demanded my attention, or I simply lost motivation. For a long time, I thought it was laziness, or lack of discipline, or maybe I didn't really want what I said I wanted, until I discovered what was really going on. My mind had identified that professional success would mean big changes in my life. It would mean more responsibility, more visibility, more risk of public failure. And although my conscious self wanted these things, my subconscious self was terrified of them. So it created a subtle system of sabotage to keep me safe in my comfort zone. It wasn't malice. It was poorly calibrated protection. My mind was trying to save me from the risk of disappointment, from the risk of not being good enough, from the risk of discovering that I wasn't as capable as I thought. But in the process, it was also saving me from success. And this is a much more common pattern than you might imagine. How many people do you know who sabotage relationships the moment they get serious? How many people start diets and give up when they start seeing results? How many people have brilliant ideas but never execute them? How many people shy away from opportunities that could change their lives? This isn't weakness of character. It's psychological protection. The mind detected that growth means change, and change means leaving behind old versions of ourselves. And leaving behind old versions means a kind of symbolic death, even if it's to make way for better versions. And here lies the central paradox of all personal transformation. To grow, you need to be willing to let go of who you were before. But your mind was programmed to keep you alive, so it resisted even the symbolic deaths that are necessary for your growth. This resistance doesn't appear as obvious fear. It appears as procrastination, as self-sabotage, as obsessive thoughts that prevent you from acting, as anxiety that arises every time you get close to a real opportunity. When you understand this, you can start to have a different dialogue with that part of yourself. Instead of fighting with your procrastination, you can say, I understand you're afraid of me changing, but change is growth, and growth is life. Instead of getting irritated with your anticipatory anxiety, you can say, I know you want to protect me from the unknown, but staying still is also risky. Instead of judging yourself for self-sabotage, you can say thank you for trying to keep me safe, but I choose to take that risk. This inner conversation isn't cheesy self-help. It's neuroscientifically grounded. When you name your fears, when you recognize the positive intention behind dysfunctional behaviors, when you position yourself as an ally and not an enemy of your own psyche, you activate different neural circuits. You leave the fight or flight mode and enter the mode of connection and collaboration. And in this state, changes that once seemed impossible become not only possible, but natural. But there's a final layer to this story that I need to tell you. Because until now, I've talked about your mind as if it were a separate entity from you, as if you were one thing and your mind were another. But the truth is deeper than that. You don't have a mind. You are a mind. All this talk about fighting your thoughts is based on a fundamental illusion. The illusion that there is a you separate from your thoughts. But modern neuroscience shows a different reality. What you call I is actually a dynamic process of multiple neural systems working together. Your conscious mind is only a small part of that process. There's the system that monitors dangers, the system that seeks rewards, the system that processes emotions, the system that creates narratives, the system that stores memories. All these systems are you, not parts that you possess, not strange voices in your head. They are different aspects of your own consciousness. When you understand this, the internal war stops, because you realize there is no enemy. There are only different parts of yourself trying to fulfill different functions. And when different parts of a system start communicating instead of fighting, the entire system works better. Your anxiety stops being a problem to be eliminated. It becomes information to be processed. Your obsessive thoughts stop being symptoms of mental illness. They become attempts at problem solving. Your sadness stops being emotional weakness. It becomes wisdom about what really matters to you. And in this state of internal integration, something miraculous happens. You start to trust yourself in a way you never trusted before, because you realize that you are not a broken person trying to fix themselves. You are a complex system learning to function more harmoniously. And this insight changes everything. Now let me show you how to apply this in practice. Because understanding is one thing. Transforming your life is another. I'm going to teach you the most powerful technique I've discovered to make an alliance with your mind. I call it the active listening protocol. But first, I need to warn you about something. The moment you start applying this, your life will start to change. And not all change is comfortable at first. Some people prefer the familiar pain of inner war to the temporary discomfort of transformation. If you're one of those people, you can stop listening now. Because what I'm going to teach you works. And things that work have consequences. Still here? Great. The active listening protocol has 5 steps. Each step is simple, but when applied together, they create a revolution in your relationship with your own thoughts. Step 1. Stop resisting. It seems obvious, but it's the hardest. For years, you've trained your brain to fight unwanted thoughts. Now you need to do the opposite. The moment an obsessive thought or a feeling of anxiety appears, your first reaction will be to try to push it away. Don't do that. Instead, take a deep breath and say mentally, "Hi, I see you. What's going on?" Yes, you'll feel a little silly talking to your own thoughts at first, but it works. Step 2. Recognize the positive intention. Every mental behavior has a positive intention behind it, even the most destructive ones. Your obsessive thought about what people think of you. Positive intention, to keep you socially connected and avoid rejection. Your anxiety about the future? Positive intention, to prepare you for potential challenges. Your deep sadness about the past? Positive intention, to process losses and extract wisdom from experiences. When you recognize the positive intention, you stop seeing your mind as defective. You begin to see it as miscalibrated, and miscalibrated things can be adjusted. Step 3. Ask the right question. Instead of asking, "How do I stop this?" ask, "What is this trying to show me?" This change of question is revolutionary because it transforms you from a victim into an investigator. And when you investigate, you always find clues. Step 4. Negotiate solutions. Once you understand the message, you can negotiate more efficient ways to achieve the same goal. Your mind wants to protect you from social embarrassment? Great. Let's create practical strategies to improve your social skills instead of dwelling on past conversations. Your mind wants to prepare you for the future? Perfect. Let's do strategic planning instead of creating imaginary catastrophic scenarios. Your mind wants to process a loss. Important. Let's create healthy grieving rituals instead of getting stuck in loops of sadness. Step 5. Test and adjust. Like any new skill, this requires practice, and it doesn't always work perfectly the first time. Sometimes you'll forget and revert to fight mode. Sometimes the negotiation won't work immediately. Sometimes you'll discover deeper layers of the message. This is normal. It's part of the process. The important thing is to maintain a collaborative attitude instead of confrontation. Let me tell you how this worked in Emily's life. Emily had an obsession with cleanliness that was destroying her relationships. She couldn't relax if anything was out of place. She spent hours a day organizing and reorganizing the house. Everyone said she had OCD, that she needed medication, that she needed to stop being controlling. But when Emily applied the active listening protocol, she discovered something different. Step 1. Instead of fighting the urge to clean, she would stop and breathe. Step 2. She recognized that the obsession with cleanliness had a positive intention to create a safe and controlled environment. Step 3. She asked, "What is this need for control trying to show me?" And the answer was surprising. Emily grew up in a chaotic home. Parents who constantly argued. An unpredictable emotional environment. As a child, she had learned that controlling the physical environment was a way to feel safe in the emotional environment. Now, as an adult, her mind was still trying to create safety in the only way she knew. Step 4. Emily negotiated with her mind. "I understand you want to keep me safe, but now I have other ways to create safety. I'm going to work on inner emotional stability instead of just external organization." Step 5. Emily created new rituals. Instead of spending hours cleaning when she was anxious, she started doing breathing exercises and journaling. She kept the house comfortably organized, but stopped striving for obsessive perfection. The result? The obsession with cleaning decreased dramatically. Her relationships improved. She had more time and energy for things that really mattered. But most importantly, Emily developed a trusting relationship with her own mind. And this is the true reward of making an alliance with your mind. It's not just the elimination of symptoms. It's the development of an inner wisdom that guides you through any situation. But there's an even deeper layer to this story. So far, I've talked about collaborating with your mind to solve specific problems. But true transformation happens when you understand that your mind isn't just protecting you from dangers. It's also guiding you towards your highest potential. All the restlessness you feel when you're not living in accordance with your deepest values. All the discomfort that arises when you're wasting your talents. All the inexplicable sadness that appears when you're living a life too small for your soul. These aren't symptoms of depression. They are symptoms of unfulfilled purpose. Your mind knows who you can become, and it becomes uncomfortable when there's a huge discrepancy between who you are and who you could be. This discomfort is not punishment. It is guidance. It's your mind gently pushing you towards more authentic and fulfilled versions of yourself. But here's the problem. Society has taught you to medicate this discomfort instead of listening to it. They've taught you that happiness is the absence of problems, that peace of mind is never feeling disturbed, that mental health is never questioning your life. This is a dangerous lie. True mental health is feeling uncomfortable with situations that are not aligned with your growth. It's feeling restless when you're not honoring your values. It's feeling sadness when you're wasting your life. These feelings are guides, not obstacles. And when you learn to read them correctly, they become your greatest competitive advantage in life. Let me give you a personal example. For years, I had a constant feeling that I was wasting my time. No matter how much I achieved in my work, no matter how many people praised my performance, there was always an inner voice saying you could be doing something more important. For a long time, I interpreted this as imposter syndrome, as chronic dissatisfaction, as a character flaw that prevented me from appreciating what I had. I tried several techniques to silence this voice: forced gratitude, mindfulness, cognitive behavioral therapy. Nothing worked completely. The feeling always came back. Until I changed the question. Instead of asking, "How do I stop feeling this way?" I asked, "What is this feeling trying to show me?" And the answer changed my life. That feeling wasn't neurosis. It was the truth. I really was wasting my potential. Not because my work was bad or worthless, but because I had chosen the safe path instead of the aligned path. My soul knew what my true calling was, knew what my unique gifts were, knew what contribution I came to make in the world. Eckhart Tolle. And she was uncomfortable because I wasn't honoring that. The moment I started making real changes, terrifying changes that aligned my outer life with my inner truth, that feeling of wasting my life disappeared. Not because I applied some mind control technique, but because I listened to the wisdom of my own soul. And here's the most incredible thing about it. When you start living aligned with who you truly are, your mind stops creating unnecessary turbulence because it no longer needs to fight for your attention. You're listening. Obsessive thoughts diminish because you're acting based on inner wisdom instead of ignoring it. Chronic anxiety resolves because you're no longer living in contradiction with your deepest values. Unexplainable depression vanishes because you're no longer wasting your life on things that don't matter. This doesn't mean you'll never feel difficult emotions again. It means those emotions will have clear purpose. Sadness when you lose something important. Fear when you're taking necessary risks for your growth. Anger when your values are being violated. These are functional emotions. In quotes. They give you useful information about the world and about yourself. Very different from the dysfunctional emotions that arise when you're living out of alignment. But there's one last insight I want to share with you. The most important of all. This whole process, learning to collaborate with your mind, decoding its messages, aligning your life with your inner truth, isn't about eliminating discomfort. It's about discovering what kind of discomfort is worth feeling. Because life will always have discomfort. The question is whether it will be the productive discomfort of growth or the destructive discomfort of stagnation. The discomfort of stepping outside your comfort zone or the discomfort of being stuck in it. The discomfort of taking risks or the discomfort of wasting opportunities. The discomfort of being authentic, or the discomfort of living a lie. When you understand this, you stop trying to eliminate all discomfort from your life. You begin to consciously choose which discomforts you're willing to feel. And that choice changes everything. Because the discomfort of growth is temporary and rewarding. The discomfort of stagnation is permanent and destructive. The discomfort of facing your fears is liberating. The discomfort of avoiding them is imprisoning. The discomfort of being vulnerable is connective. The discomfort of hiding is isolating. Your mind knows this. That's why it creates turbulence when you choose the wrong discomforts. It's not trying to punish you. It's trying to redirect you. And when you learn to read these signals correctly, your life becomes a conscious collaboration between who you are now and who you can become. Not a war, a dance. Not a struggle, a partnership. Not a problem to be solved, a potential to be realized. So let me ask you one final question. Now that you know your mind isn't your enemy, what are you going to do with this information? Will you continue fighting it out of habit? Or will you start listening to it as the ally it has always been? Will you continue trying to silence your feelings? Or will you start decoding the messages they carry? Will you continue medicating your discomforts? Or will you start using them as guidance for a more aligned life? The choice is yours. It always has been. Your mind was just waiting for you to discover this. And now that you have, it can finally relax. Because it knows you no longer need protection from yourself. You need partnership with yourself. And when that partnership happens, when you finally make peace with your own mind, something miraculous emerges. You discover that the person you were trying to become through so much effort and control was already here all along, waiting patiently for you to stop fighting and start listening. Your mind was never your enemy. It was always the guardian of your highest potential. And now you finally know how to hear what it has to say.